in this little town called Benton Harbor. And my mom contracted tuberculosis while she was carrying me. And I was born in December. She died in March. Now, I never knew my dad. She got pregnant when she was away from the family, and nobody else knew my dad. And that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to sort of reconcile. I mean, I understood the fact that I didn't have a mom, but I really couldn't quite get my head around why I don't have a dad. But, and my grandmother was sort of my everything. She would, we spent a lot of time in church, and we had all these evangelists and ministers who would kind of come and they'd do their thing. And then on the way home from church or at home, she would explain to me in ways that she thought I could understand. And so she sort of had sort of a spiritualist point of view. Now, when you'll hear me talk about God and church a little bit, because that's my orientation. I'm not promoting any kind of religion. I don't have a church. I'm going to ask you to join. I'm not selling anything in the back of the room. So this is just, so if the word God bothers you, just substitute it with the universe or whatever you want. In fact, my grandmother used to say, we'd be walking home and she'd say, look up at the sky. And she said, what do you see? And I said, well, there's the stars. I see a lot of stars and the moon. And she said, well, what else do you see? And I said, well, there's nothing. And she said, well, what you call nothing, that is God. That is the stuff that holds it all together. And so that was kind of her explaining things. The father thing bothered me because how do you not have a father, you know? I mean, I'd be at school and they'd want you to fill out the form and I had to put my brother's father's name down. Now, it was kind of good that I didn't have a father that anybody knew because they knew his father and they hated him. So everything they said about him was really, really bad. But my grandmother would say, in trying to explain to me, she said, you know, son, God is your father. Now, I go like, oh, mama, God is everybody's father. And she said, yeah, baby, but everybody don't know it. And I'm telling you so that you will always know it, that there's something greater than we are that you can call on, that you can ask. And whatever it is that you're trying to do, you will get assistance. But you got to know that you belong. It's like having money in the bank. If you don't know what's there, you can't draw on it. But once you know, once you really get that, and that has sort of carried me through my life. There's a few things I learned from my grandmother that has always sort of held me sort of in place. I finished high school because she asked me to. You know, I mean, I really didn't get it. It was like not really needing to try. I mean, I just sort of went to school and I did what my grandma was born in 1895, and in 1895, if you had a high school education, that was like the pinnacle of success. But in 1964, when I graduated, it didn't really mean a whole lot. So, but I did finish high school, and then I found myself at that place where I've been a lot of times in my life, where you just go, what am I going to do? I mean, this was 1964. In the town I grew up, racism was very rampant. Certain jobs you really couldn't get. And I was stuck. So I figured it out. Now, here's another thing I learned. Don't ever try to figure it out because you cannot figure it out. It's crazy. But I figured out I'm going to join the Marine Corps. Wow. I'm going to, you know, and I had noble reasons for joining because I thought by joining the Marine Corps, I'll be able to save myself. And I'd be able to travel the world and meet women. And it's like, it's gonna be like really cool. And you get to wear like a really cool uniform. And it's like, I got to the receiving depot in San Diego at the basic training. And those people were crazy. The Marine Corps, those people are nuts. In fact, when I got there, it was the first time I ever heard of Vietnam. Nobody talked about Vietnam in 1964. And they were talking about war, and nobody said anything about a war. I mean, I joined because I wanted to meet women, and now they had this war going on. But I was there. I had a crazy drill instructor who forced me to eat shrimp, and I had a bad asthma attack, and then I found myself back home after about 10 weeks. But the good news is I didn't have to go to Vietnam. The bad news is I was still back in this little town with what do I do with my life? So once again, I figured it out. I figured it out. Okay, I got to do something. I'm a man now, and I got to figure it out. So I was dating this girl. I went to her house, and her mom made her wash dishes. And she didn't like it, but, she washed dishes. I went to her house the next night, and the mom made her wash dishes the second time. And it was her sister's turn, and she was upset. And the mother said, just wash the dishes. So she went in the kitchen. She was throwing things around. She was crying, and she said, not fair. She never treats me right. And I was sort of standing there, and I'm like, well, it's, I don't know, we could get married or something. She said, okay. And I said, well, we're not married, but she said, no, I really want to. And so I went home and I told my mother, my grandmother, when I say my mother, I'm talking about my grandmother. And my grandmother said, no, ain't gonna happen. You go back and you tell that child that you ain't getting married. And so I went back and I said, about that marriage thing, getting married, she said, no, I really want to. And I said, well, yeah, but, I don't think that we should get married. She says, no, so you lied. And I said, well, no, I didn't lie. So, and then I thought, well, I am a man now. I've been to the military for 10 weeks. And I'm a man, I gotta have a wife, so she's cool. So, and her mother's mean to her, so we can get married. So we got married, and she got pregnant right away, and now I'm really sort of stuck. I got a job as a janitor, and I want to do something. What do I do? How do I ever get out of this thing? And finally, I couldn't figure anything else out, and so I did what my grandmother told me to do. She said, son, you have to go to God in prayer, and you have to humble yourself, and you have to ask. And so about 3 o'clock in the morning, and my wife was pregnant, the baby's coming. And so I prayed, God, help me, just give me a sign, tell me something. What do? I got to do something. And I heard this voice say to me so clear, it said, take the tube out of the back of the TV. It wasn't quite what I expected to hear, and I'm like, what? Take the tube out of the back of the TV. And so at 3 o'clock in the morning, I went downstairs, and now, of course, with the flat screens, I don't even know if they even have tubes, but in those days, you had the TV screen, and then you had a box on the back with all these little tubes in there. So I took the tube out, and the TV didn't work, and my wife was really upset because we had no money to get it fixed. But what I realized was that I was working this job, I'd come home, she'd fix dinner, and we ate on those little TV trays in front of the TV, and then we'd go to bed, and then it started again the next day. And when the TV was broken, we actually started to talk to each other. And I discovered this person that I had married. I didn't even know her. We really began to talk, and she was smart, and she read books. I didn't read books, but she was like, really. And so we began to play that game, what if, and we could do this and that. It changed my life, and as a result, I don't really watch a lot of TV. I work in television, but I don't really watch a lot of TV. And so we began to plan, and we figured we went to Detroit, and we both got into college, and I took an acting class, and I was doing this play, and the first time I walked on stage, I just knew I was at home. I think there's something that we all do that it's what you do. You just know this is what you do. A lot of times people say, find the thing that you love, but I don't worry about finding the thing that you love. Find the thing that you can do.